Have you ever wondered why some of the most extraordinary stories never make it into the history books? Welcome to 7 Continents, One Story.
So glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, this is literally my favorite place to be. Let's go.
I'm Celine, based in Edinburgh, Scotland. History hobbyist, library regular, endlessly curious.
I'm Niels, professor of history from Sweden. I've spent decades collecting these stories.
And I'm Ethan from Malta. I'm the one who always asks what happened in Japan.
Each episode, we travel together through time, across all 7 continents, to uncover a story that shaped the world.
We bring the history. Celine brings the questions that make you think differently about it.
And I bring the questions that make Niels slightly nervous.
The more we learn, the more we realize how much there still is to discover.
Before we dive into today's episode, a quick word about our partner, Cyprus Real Returns. You know, I have always admired how ancient civilizations thought strategically about the future, and that is exactly what drew me to this partnership. Cyprus Real Returns offers something rare: guaranteed returns of 6 to 12% on Cyprus real estate investments, with 100% security through the Cyprus Land Registry. What I really appreciate is the hassle-free approach. Professional management handles everything. And here's the part that excites me most. With solid returns, you can actually afford to travel to these incredible historical sites we talk about. Visit cyprusrealreturns.com to explore how strategic investing can fund your own historical adventures.
There is a map I keep in my head that I want you to imagine. It is a map of North America. The year is 1802. The United States is a young country, 26 years old. It runs from the Atlantic coast in the east to a line roughly following the Appalachian Mountains and beyond into the interior. Beyond that line, the vast center and west of the continent belongs to other powers. Now, imagine that in the space of about 3 weeks in the spring of 1803, a transaction takes place that doubles the size of the United States overnight. Not a war, not a treaty after years of negotiation, a deal hastily arranged for $15 million.
$15 million for half a continent.
Roughly 3 cents an acre.
That is
the Louisiana Purchase. And the real story behind it is nothing like what is usually told. The real story involves a slave rebellion, a dying general, a bankrupt empire, and a president who was almost certainly doing something constitutionally illegal and knew it. Welcome to 7 Continents, One Story. I am Niels, your host and professor of history.
I am Celine, librarian from Edinburgh, and this is one of those stories where the more you dig, the more extraordinary it gets.
I am Ethan from Malta, and I clearly did not learn enough about this in school.
Before we go further, I want to give you something to hold in your mind. In the National Archives of the United States in Washington, D.C., there is a document, a very specific document. It is not kept on permanent public display. It is too fragile for that, but scholars can access it. It is written in French and English. It carries the signatures of 2 nations, and it transferred more territory than any other single legal document in the history of the Western world. Clue 1. It is on paper, parchment, technically. It exists in 3 original copies.
A treaty?
A treaty of a very particular kind. Think about who was involved and why the deal was done in such extraordinary haste. We will return to it. To understand why this happened, you need to understand what the Mississippi River meant to the early United States. In 1803, the Mississippi was not merely a river. It was the circulatory system of the Western economy. Farmers in Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, the entire interior of the continent, used the Mississippi to ship their goods south to the port of New Orleans, and from there to the world.
And New Orleans was controlled by Spain at that point.
Spain had controlled the Louisiana Territory, the vast region west of the Mississippi, since the 1760s. But under an agreement called Pinckney's Treaty of 1795, American merchants had the right to store goods at New Orleans while awaiting transfer to ocean-going vessels.
So the entire Western American economy depended on an agreement with a foreign power.
Exactly. And in October 1802, the Spanish authorities in New Orleans, under pressure from a new controller, suddenly revoked that right. American goods began piling up, unable to reach the sea.
Who was this new controller?
Napoleon Bonaparte. In October 1800, Spain had secretly agreed to return the Louisiana Territory to France under the Treaty of San Ildefonso. Napoleon had an extraordinary vision, a French empire in the Western Hemisphere. The Louisiana Territory would be the breadbasket, and the pearl at the center of this empire,
Saint-Domingue, what we now call Haiti.
the most valuable colony on Earth. In 1800, Saint-Domingue produced roughly 40% of all the sugar consumed in Europe, and more than half its coffee. It was by some measures the most economically productive piece of land on the planet.
So Napoleon's plan was Louisiana feeds the empire, Haiti generates the wealth.
Precisely. And Louisiana, New Orleans, was the gateway. There was one problem. The enslaved people of Saint-Domingue had other plans. 1791. The largest and most successful slave rebellion in history begins on Saint-Domingue, led eventually by a man named Toussaint Louverture, a formerly enslaved man of extraordinary military and political genius. By 1801, Toussaint had effectively made Saint-Domingue a self-governing republic, though nominally still part of France. He had driven out the British, suppressed internal rivals, and written a constitution.
And Napoleon could not accept this.
Napoleon sent his brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc, with an army of over 20,000 soldiers to crush the revolution and reassert French control.
What happened?
Yellow fever, and the resistance of people fighting for their lives and their freedom. Toussaint Louverture was captured by treachery, invited to a meeting under a flag of truce, and then arrested. He died in a French prison in April 1803, but the revolution continued without him. Leclerc's army was devastated by yellow fever. 50,000 French soldiers died, of disease, of combat, of the relentless pressure of a people who would not submit. By late 1802, Napoleon's dream of a French hemisphere was dying.
And without Haiti, Louisiana had no purpose.
Without Haiti, Louisiana was an expensive liability with no clear economic function, and Napoleon was about to re-enter war with Britain. He needed money. He needed to prevent Louisiana from falling to British forces. He made a decision. He would sell. Your second clue about our document. The negotiation that produced this document was handled on the American side by two men, Robert Livingston, the American ambassador to France, and James Monroe, sent specially by President Jefferson to assist. On the morning of April 11, 1803, Livingston met with the French Foreign Minister Talleyrand. Talleyrand asked almost casually whether the United States would like to purchase not just New Orleans, but the entire Louisiana Territory.
The entire territory, not just the city.
Everything. 828,000 square miles. The entire central region of North America. What would eventually become 15 American states.
Livingston must have been stunned.
He was, and he had no authority from President Jefferson to negotiate for the whole territory, only for New Orleans. He improvised. He stalled. He waited for Monroe to arrive the next day. Together, they negotiated. Within 2 weeks, they had a deal. The entire territory for 60 million francs, roughly $15 million, completed with extraordinary speed because Napoleon needed the money and needed the deal done before he could change his mind.
Before he could change his mind?
Napoleon's brothers tried to talk him out of it. His advisors thought it was madness. He overruled everyone and insisted on moving fast. The document, our artifact, was signed on April 30th, 1803.
Here's the part I find most interesting, because Jefferson had a serious problem with what had just happened.
Thomas Jefferson had spent his entire political career arguing for a strict reading of the Constitution. The federal government could only do what the Constitution explicitly permitted, no more.
And the Constitution did not explicitly permit purchasing foreign territory?
It did not. Jefferson knew this. He drafted a constitutional amendment that would have explicitly authorized the purchase, then abandoned it when he realized there was no time. Napoleon might withdraw the offer.
So he did it anyway. He did something he believed to be constitutionally questionable because the opportunity was too important.
He wrote to a friend, "The less we say about the constitutional difficulty, the better." He submitted the treaty to the Senate in secret session. It was ratified 64-0.
No one wanted to be the person who voted against doubling the country.
Political pragmatism is a consistent feature of every era.
And here is the question. It is the spring of 1803. You are Thomas Jefferson. 2 men you sent to buy a port city have just sent word that France has offered to sell you half a continent. You believe this purchase may be unconstitutional. The Constitution you helped create does not explicitly authorize this. You have built your entire political career on the argument that the federal government cannot do things the Constitution does not permit. Do you proceed, or do you decline on principle and stick to your constitutional philosophy?
This is one of those questions where I know what the correct principled answer is and also know I wouldn't do it. The principled answer is decline, or at least insist on the amendment. Stick to what you believe, but in practice, the opportunity is so enormous. The land is so vast, the strategic advantage is so clear. I buy it. I think almost anyone would buy it.
I would too, but the interesting part is what it tells us about Jefferson as a person. He was not a hypocrite exactly. He believed in the principle. He also believed that some opportunities are too important to let principles stand in the way.
The Louisiana Purchase is one of the most consequential acts in American history. It made the United States a continental power. It opened the American West. It changed the trajectory of a nation. And it was made possible by a slave rebellion that Jefferson would never acknowledge as relevant, because to do so would have required him to confront too many things about himself and his world.
Toussaint Louverture is the reason Napoleon sold, and Jefferson never wrote about Toussaint with anything approaching recognition.
History is layered. Every event is made possible by other events that the people involved preferred not to see. 3 original copies of the treaty, written in French and in English, signed by Robert Livingston, James Monroe, and François de Barbé-Marbois for France, dated April 30th, 1803. One copy is held in the National Archives of the United States in Washington, D.C. The other American copy is also held there. The French copy is in the National Archives of France. Documents do not usually survive this long. Parchment is fragile. Wars happen. Buildings burn. But this document survived because it was, from the moment it was signed, understood to be extraordinary. People knew, on both sides, in both languages, they knew they were creating something that would change the world.
828,000 square miles of territory on those 3 pieces of parchment.
3 cents an acre.
The best real estate deal in history.
His name needs to be said properly.
François Dominique Toussaint Louverture. Born into slavery in Saint-Domingue, what is now Haiti, in 1743, self-educated. Read Caesar's Gallic Wars and Raynal's History of the Two Indies. Became, without formal military training, one of the most effective military commanders of his era. He defeated the British. He defeated the Spanish. He built a state. He wrote a constitution. And when Napoleon sent his army to crush everything Toussaint had built, the resistance Toussaint had started continued after his capture and destroyed that army.
Because of that destruction, Napoleon sold Louisiana. Because of that sale, the United States doubled in size. Because of that doubling, American westward expansion became possible.
An enslaved man, born in the Caribbean, is one of the most consequential figures in the history of North America, and most people have never heard of him.
Toussaint Louverture, remember the name.
He died in a French prison in April 1803, 1 month before the treaty was signed.
He never knew what he had set in motion. 1803. A slave rebellion in the Caribbean destroys Napoleon's imperial dream. A desperate emperor decides to sell. 2 American diplomats improvise the deal of the century. A president who believed in strict constitutional limits decides that some deals are too important for philosophy, and the United States doubles in size overnight for 3 cents an acre.
History's most consequential real estate transaction.
Made possible by the people who were never given credit for it, the enslaved people of Saint-Domingue, Toussaint Louverture. A revolution that the powerful preferred not to acknowledge.
The Louisiana Purchase without the Haitian Revolution is simply not the Louisiana Purchase.
History is always made by more people than the history books acknowledge. Our job is to find them, name them, put them back in the frame where they belong. Until our next journey through time, keep history alive. What a journey through history today. You know, one thing I love about studying the past is it teaches us to think strategically about the future. That is why I am genuinely glad we are partnered with Cypress Real Returns. They offer a strategic approach to building wealth. Guaranteed 6 to 12% returns on Cypress real estate, 100% secured through the Cypress Land Registry, with professional management handling everything. The goal? Financial freedom to experience the history we love. With Cypress tourism booming and property values growing nearly 8% annually, it is an opportunity worth exploring. Visit cypressrealreturns.com to learn more.